Shout at me again and I'll end you, Black Waitress warned Billionaire. What he did next will shock you. The night the Billionaire walked into Emberline Grill, the air itself seemed to stiffen. Conversations paused, forks froze mid-air, and even the jazz music fell oddly quiet, as if the room sensed trouble before it arrived. Maya Carter stood at table 12, clutching her order pad, blinking through the exhaustion of a double shift. Her braids were tied back, her apron smudged with coffee stains, and her eyes still red from crying in the break room. Her rent was overdue. Her brother's school fees were due tomorrow. And the tips tonight? Barely enough to buy bread. She didn't expect her night to get worse. Then he walked in Logan Thorne. A billionaire. A legend in business. A terror in public spaces. Entitled. Cold. Known for humiliating workers for sport. He slid into the booth like he owned air, patience, and time itself. When Maya approached to greet him, he didn't look up. Instead, he snapped his fingers in her face. Snap. Like she was a dog. Hey, you, he barked. I've been waiting 5 minutes. Move faster. Her jaw tightened. Sir, you just sat. Did I ask what you think? He smirked. Shout at me again and I'll end you. The restaurant went still. Everyone stared. Maya's chest rose, fell, and then she said it. Her voice calm. Dangerous. Controlled like a storm with chains. Shout at me again and I'll end you. Gasps. Utensils clattered. Someone whispered, Oh Lord. Logan finally raised his eyes, cold steel meeting burning fire. What he did next shocked everyone, and it was only the beginning. The moment the words left Maya Carter's mouth, the restaurant seemed to freeze in time. A strange silence swallowed the room, heavy, suffocating, electric. Forks hovered mid-air, a glass rattled in a tray, and even the soft jazz from the speakers felt muted, as if the world itself had paused to witness what was happening. Chef Marco peeked from the kitchen window, ladle in hand, his eyes wide as though he expected her to conjure some kind of storm. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Her gaze stayed locked on Logan Thorne, the man whose reputation preceded him like a shadow. He was a billionaire known for breaking people with a word, a look, or even a delayed response. Entitled, ruthless, and utterly unyielding, a man who had made thousands cry before they even realized what had hurt them. And yet, standing there in her worn apron, coffee-stained and exhausted after a double shift, Maya refused to shrink. She had swallowed insults before. She had smiled through disrespect. She had learned to push her pride down so far it almost stopped her from breathing. But tonight, something inside her had snapped, not in anger, but in unwavering certainty. A certainty that she would not allow herself to be belittled again. Not by him, not by anyone. Logan leaned back in his chair slowly, the motion deliberate, like a predator observing an anomaly. A slow, sharp smile crept across his lips. Well, he said, voice low, deliberate, and dripping with arrogance, you've got a mouth. And you've got an attitude, Maya shot back without a flicker of fear in her eyes. A few customers flinched. One couple whispered behind their hands, and Mr. Grayson, the manager, sprinted across the polished floor, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. Maya, he hissed, grabbing her arm lightly. What do you think you're doing? Apologize. Now. No, she said calmly, still holding Logan's gaze. Mr. Grayson's hand froze midair, as if she had slapped him. Logan's smile widened, amused. Let her talk, Grayson. I want to hear it. Maya crossed her arms, feeling her pulse hammering in her throat. You think you can yell at people because you have money, that it makes you untouchable. But you don't scare me. He raised an eyebrow, leaning slightly forward. Everyone is scared of me. Not me, she replied, her tone steady. Logan tapped his fingers against the polished wood of the table. Why? What makes you so special? Her voice softened slightly, but her eyes blazed like fire. I've survived worse than you. The words hung in the air, changing its weight. For the first time that night, something in Logan's expression faltered, a flicker of curiosity mixed with a shade of annoyance, though neither completely replaced his usual mask of control. Mr. Grayson stepped between them, panic lacing his voice. Logan, please forgive her. I'll fire her immediately. No harm done. Maya's hands flew to her hips. Fire me for what? For not letting a man yell at me like I'm nothing. Logan lifted a hand, stopping the argument before it could escalate further. She's not fired, he said simply. The restaurant collectively exhaled. Mr. Grayson blinked, dumbfounded. Yes, sir. Logan's gaze returned to Maya. I'm not done with her. Maya's chest tightened. Something in his voice wasn't threatening, not really. But it was powerful, magnetic, and impossibly unsettling. And it scared her more than any insult ever had. The first real test began when Logan leaned forward slightly. "All right, waitress," he said, the smirk on his face half enticing, half mocking. "Let's see if your attitude matches your service." "What do you want?" Maya asked, exasperation edging her tone. He chuckled, slow and confident. "Surprise me." "That's not an order," she replied, keeping her back straight. "It is now," he said casually, as if that solved the problem. Her nostrils flared, but she turned on her heels, her pride unyielding. As she walked, she could feel his eyes tracking her, not with desire, not with contempt, but with an intensity that made the hair on her neck stand on end. In the kitchen, Chef Marco muttered under his breath, shaking his head. "You're either brave or insane." "Maybe both," Maya replied quietly, focusing on the plate in front of her. She assembled a simple, comforting dish, lemon chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and a side salad. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't extravagant, but was made with care, warmth, and honesty. Setting the plate before him, she met his gaze. "That's your surprise." Logan looked at the food and then back at her. "It's plain." "Yes. It's honest." Her tone made him pause. He picked up his fork, slowly, deliberately. The first bite wasn't mind-blowing, not life-changing. But it carried something unexpected. It was served without flattery, without fear, without manipulation. Logan froze, a reaction he wasn't accustomed to having in public. Halfway through, he asked casually, "What's your name?" "Maya," she answered steady. "Last name?" "Why?" "Because I like knowing things," he said simply. She frowned. "It's Carter." "Maya Carter," he repeated softly, like tasting the syllables on his tongue. The way he said it sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. After swallowing another bite, he set down his fork. "Earlier, when you warned me, did you mean it?" "Yes," she replied, firm but calm. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of being disrespected by people who think money makes them untouchable." Logan leaned in slightly, curious. "You think I'm untouchable?" "I think you want to be," she said, unwavering. He smirked, leaning back again. "Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not." Maya didn't look away. Everyone bleeds. For the first time, Logan had no comeback. In that moment, the mask slipped slightly, revealing something almost human, almost vulnerable. Then he said the words that made her stomach twist. "Clock out after your shift. I want to speak with you outside." Maya's heart hammered. "Why?" He shrugged, as if it were obvious. "Because you're the first person who's ever talked to me like that, and I'm not finished with you yet." Whispers filled the room. Mr. Grayson nearly fainted, and Maya felt a chill crawl down her spine. Why did a billionaire want to see her alone? What was he planning? And why did something in his eyes look almost like pain? After her shift ended, Maya stepped out into the cool night air, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Her muscles ached from hours of standing and carrying trays, and yet an unexplainable tension kept her heart hammering. Logan Thorne had instructed her to meet him outside the restaurant, a request that was equal parts thrilling and terrifying. She had survived poverty, late-night walks home through unsafe streets, and more than her fair share of disrespectful customers, but something about this encounter made her stomach twist. She found him leaning against a sleek black luxury car parked across the street, hands tucked casually into his pockets. The streetlight hit his face in just the right way to highlight the sharp angles, the cold blue eyes, the faint smirk that didn't quite reach them. He wasn't angry. Not exactly. But there was a curiosity in his gaze, one that unsettled her far more than aggression ever could. "You came," he said, voice calm, almost conversational. Maya crossed her arms, her brow furrowed. "I didn't exactly have a choice, did I?" Logan chuckled softly, a sound that was both musical and unnerving. "You think this is about choice? No, this is about understanding." "Understanding what?" Maya asked, suspicion lacing her words. Logan stepped closer, just enough to make her aware of his presence, without crowding her. Understanding people who refuse to be intimidated. People who have fire in their veins when the world expects them to be meek. Maya's jaw tightened. "And why is that interesting to you?" His expression shifted, a rare moment of vulnerability. "Because most people let money, power, and fear dictate their lives. Most people bow. You stand." She swallowed, uncertain if this was a compliment or a warning. "So what?" You're some kind of philanthropist who tests waitresses at night. No, he said quietly, almost too quietly for the busy street around them. I've never met anyone like you. That's all. Maya stared at him, trying to measure the truth in his eyes. Billionaires didn't just walk up to people and admit curiosity. They bought companies, controlled markets, shaped governments, and they didn't acknowledge the ordinary struggles of someone like her. And yet, here he was, standing in the shadow of streetlights, looking at her with an intensity she couldn't ignore. The silence stretched. The distant hum of cars, the occasional shout from a nearby alley, and the faint aroma of exhaust filled the night. Maya finally broke it. Why me? She asked, voice low, almost afraid to hear the answer. Because, Logan replied slowly, I see honesty in you. Not fake honesty. Not polite, manufactured niceness. Real honesty. And it scares me in a way. Maya felt a shiver run down her spine. People often feared her. They mocked her, criticized her, or dismissed her. But him being scared? That was new. You know, she said cautiously, you could just walk away. Go back to your money, your empire, your whatever. I could, he admitted. But I don't want to. Because when someone challenges me like you did, without flinching, without apologizing, it forces me to look at myself. Maya's heart skipped. That sounded almost human, almost tender. And for the first time, she wondered if Logan Thorne had ever truly been confronted by someone who wouldn't bow. They walked together down the quiet street, the distance between them charged with unspoken tension. She noticed his hands were steady, not twitching with irritation or impatience. His posture wasn't defensive, it was observant, deliberate. He was studying her not to intimidate, but to understand. You're curious, Maya said suddenly, a small smirk tugging at her lips. He glanced at her, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. I am. About you. About why you refuse to let the world push you down. About why, even after years of struggle, you maintain that fire in your chest. Maya's breath caught. And what if I tell you curiosity cuts both ways? He paused. Then we have something worth exploring. A tension hung in the air that had nothing to do with romance, fear, or anger. It was raw human curiosity, a rare connection forged in the middle of a city that usually ran on money, ambition, and indifference. You're dangerous, Maya said softly. You know that, right? Logan smiled faintly, but there was no arrogance this time. Dangerous? Maybe. But not to you. Not yet. Her pulse quickened. She didn't know what to say. Should she trust him? Could she? And even if she wanted to, the thought of stepping closer to a man who could ruin her life with a single signature in his bank sent a jolt of fear down her spine. Then he stopped, turning to face her fully. His eyes softened, if only slightly, under the dim streetlight. Maya, this night isn't about money, status, or power. It's about choice. And right now, the choice is yours. She met his gaze, torn between instinct and curiosity. Something told her that following him, listening to him, understanding why he was drawn to her, could change her life forever. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, be careful. Billionaires don't chase ordinary people without a reason. Maya inhaled sharply, steadying herself. All right, she said, her voice firm. I'll listen, but you'd better make it worth my time. Logan's smirk returned, a slow, deliberate curve that promised surprises, revelations, and a night she would never forget. And with that, the curiosity between them deepened, thickening the air like a storm waiting to break. The next morning, Maya woke to the shrill buzz of her alarm, muscles still sore from the previous night's double shift. Yet, a strange anticipation made her heart race. Logan Thorne had told her to meet him at a nearby cafe. Not a fancy one, not a boardroom, but a modest coffee shop tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. The simplicity of it unnerved her. Billionaires didn't choose humble places for meetings. They chose grand offices, private jets, or five-star suites. So why him? She arrived early, her nerves buzzing. She rubbed her palms on her apron, still faintly stained from yesterday. Every instinct told her to walk away, to forget the billionaire who had unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. But the pull of curiosity, that strange, magnetic force Logan had unleashed, kept her rooted. Then she saw him. Logan sat at a corner table, sleek leather jacket thrown casually over the chair, an untouched cup of black coffee in front of him. His posture was relaxed, but the intensity in his gaze was sharper than a blade. He didn't wave or smile immediately. Instead, he observed her as if reading her from across the room, noting the subtle tension in her shoulders, the quickening of her breath. "You came," he said, his voice low but carrying a weight that made the cafe feel empty around them. "I didn't have a choice," Maya replied, sliding into the chair opposite him. "You don't exactly ask politely, Mr. Thorne." "Logan," he corrected smoothly, a hint of amusement in his tone. "Mr. Thorne sounds too formal." She narrowed her eyes. "Formal or not, you're testing me. And I don't like tests." He chuckled, and it was softer than she expected, almost human. "Good. I don't want you to like it. I want to see how you respond under pressure." Maya's stomach tightened. "Pressure? What kind of pressure?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "The kind where your patience, your judgment, and your instincts are all being evaluated. And not by someone who will tolerate excuses." Her pulse quickened. "You're insane." "Perhaps. Or perhaps I just don't meet people like you often." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, I need to see what you're capable of. And I need to see if you'll rise or falter when things get complicated." Maya bristled. She didn't know what he meant, and that uncertainty made her uneasy. But the spark in his eyes, that mixture of curiosity and intensity, drew her in whether she liked it or not. Before she could respond, Logan pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. A video was already playing. It showed a woman struggling to calm a small child in the middle of a busy street, cars whizzing dangerously close, the child's face streaked with tears. "Watch closely," Logan said. Maya's eyes widened. "What is this?" "This is a simulation," he explained. "You have 10 minutes to get them to safety." Her heart sank. A test. A realistic, lifelike test? She felt the adrenaline spike immediately, muscles tensing, instinctively. I don't know how," she began. "You do," he interrupted firmly. "Your instincts are sharper than most people's, Maya. I want to see if you trust them." She stared at the screen. The child was panicking. Cars honked. People shouted. Her hands trembled, but only slightly, enough to make her aware of the gravity of what she was about to do. Then Logan said quietly, almost in a whisper, "You're capable of more than you think. But I need to know if you believe it too." Something in her chest tightened. He wasn't asking for blind obedience. He wasn't testing her for entertainment. He was testing her for trust, for courage, for presence of mind. And the weight of that realization made her palms sweat. Maya took a deep breath and leaned forward, studying the scenario on the screen. Cars were dangerously close. The child was screaming, panicking, every second feeling longer than the last. Her mind raced, calculating risk, safety, and timing, every instinct honed from years of navigating a life filled with struggle and quick thinking. Then she acted. Pointing out the safest route, coordinating with bystanders in the video simulation, she guided the child step by step. Her voice in the simulation was calm, firm, authoritative, not loud, not bossy, but commanding attention without force. Logan watched her silently, his usual smirk replaced by a near imperceptible nod of approval. He didn't intervene. He didn't guide. He simply watched. And for the first time, Maya felt the thrill of being fully seen, recognized for her ability, not her appearance, her role, or her social standing. When the video ended, the child safely out of harm's way, she exhaled sharply, nearly collapsing into her chair. Logan leaned back, his gaze piercing. "Not bad," he said softly. "You're quick, calm under pressure, and decisive. But more importantly," he paused, "you didn't let fear dictate your actions. That's rare." Maya stared at him, exhausted yet exhilarated. "And now, he said, standing and brushing his jacket, "we move to the next test. But that's a story for later." Her heart pounded. She had survived the first challenge. And yet, the real question lingered. Why did he want to test her? And the answer was coming. The late afternoon sun slanted across the office building's glass facade, casting long shadows down the narrow alley where Maya found herself waiting. Logan had instructed her to meet him inside the high-rise, a place she had only seen in passing during late-night city walks, its elevators glinting like silver mirrors reflecting ambitions she couldn't yet touch. Her heart pounded as she stepped through the revolving doors, the lobby buzzing with suited employees whose faces seemed to blend into a monotony of indifference. Logan appeared almost immediately, waiting near the elevators, as if he had known exactly where she would be. No greeting, no small talk, only that piercing gaze that had haunted her thoughts since the night at Emberline Grill. "Follow me," he said simply, striding ahead. Maya hesitated for a moment, glancing around at the sharp edges of polished marble and glass. Something told her that this encounter would change everything. The elevator ride was silent, each floor tick marking the ascent not just to the penthouse, but to something far heavier, revelation. Maya's pulse thudded in her ears. She wasn't sure if it was fear, anticipation, or the strange pull of curiosity Logan had woven around her since the first encounter. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into a vast, sleek penthouse office, walls lined with floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the sprawling city below. It was breathtaking, a kingdom of wealth and power. But her eyes were drawn not to the luxury, but to the quiet, almost human tension in Logan's stance. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. She obeyed, keeping her back straight, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Logan studied her for a moment. "You've passed the first test," he began, voice measured controlled. The simulation at the cafe wasn't just about quick thinking or courage. It was about observation, composure, and trust. And you demonstrated all three. Maya frowned. "Trust. You didn't exactly make that easy." "No," he admitted. "I didn't. And that's the point." She leaned forward slightly, her curiosity breaking the surface of her usual caution. "Then tell me, what is this really about?" Logan's eyes darkened, revealing a flicker of something vulnerable, almost human. "I don't ask this of many people, Maya. But I've been failing. Failing to see the world through the lens of honesty, integrity, courage. I've surrounded myself with yes men, people afraid to speak the truth. And I needed someone who would. Someone fearless." Maya's throat tightened. The words hit her differently than any insult or praise ever had. Fearless. That was exactly what Logan was calling her, not for submission, not for charm, but for being her authentic self. "You're saying," she began cautiously, "you need me to be honest with you?" "Yes," he said simply. "I need someone to challenge me, to confront me, to remind me that I'm human, not untouchable, not above consequence." Maya blinked, caught off guard by the depth of his confession. For a billionaire, a man accustomed to control, dominance, and unquestioning obedience, this was shocking. Vulnerability wasn't a word associated with Logan Thorne, yet here it was, spilling out before her like sunlight through a storm. She took a deep breath. "And the tests? The cafe everything? That was to see if I could do it." He nodded. "Not just do it. Thrive in it. Show me that courage and morality can exist beyond fear and wealth. That people like you can survive in a world like mine and still stay true to themselves." Maya's mind raced. She realized, with a mix of awe and suspicion, that he wasn't testing her for amusement. He was testing her for truth, and in doing so, testing himself. She began, unsure what to say. Her instinct screamed caution, yet a strange warmth spread through her chest. "I've never met anyone like you." "And I've never met anyone like you," he said quietly, almost reverently. "You challenged me in a way no one else ever has. And I needed that." A long silence stretched between them, charged and heavy. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, her mind spinning with the magnitude of the revelation. She realized something profound. This billionaire, this man who had once intimidated an entire restaurant with a look, was seeking something more than control or power. He was seeking redemption, honesty, and humanity, and she was the first person brave enough to make him confront it. Logan leaned back, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I need to know something else, Maya. Do you believe in second chances?" She studied him, every line of his face, every shadow in his eyes. I think everyone deserves one," she said carefully. His gaze softened, the intensity giving way to something almost fragile. "Good, because I intend to give you more than tests. I intend to give you a choice, a chance to step into something greater than either of us imagined. But first," he paused, letting the weight of his words hang. "You must decide if you trust me. Truly." Maya's breath caught. This was no longer about fear, bravery, or even survival. This was about trust, about connection, about whether she would step forward into unknown territory with a man whose power could destroy her life or elevate it beyond imagination. And for the first time, she realized that the real revelation wasn't Logan's wealth, or his tests, or even his curiosity. The real revelation was the undeniable truth that sometimes the most powerful people were the ones who needed saving, not in their bank accounts, but in their hearts. Maya met his gaze, the room spinning around her in a haze of light, shadow, and tension. All right, she said, voice steady, but her pulse racing. I'll trust you. Logan's smile widened, subtle, almost relieved. Good. Then the real journey begins. The next morning, Maya arrived at Logan's private estate, an imposing structure of glass and steel perched on a hill overlooking the city. She had been told to come alone, and a part of her was nervous. This was no cafe simulation, no casual test. Something bigger, far more personal, awaited her. Logan met her at the door, his expression unreadable. He didn't smile, didn't joke. He simply led her down a long hallway into a massive room filled with monitors, maps, and flashing lights, a nerve center that resembled a high-stakes operations command more than anything she had seen outside movie. What is this? She asked, her voice tight. This, Logan said quietly, is the real test. Before she could process, alarms sounded on the monitors. A news alert flashed across one screen. A small neighborhood on the outskirts of the city was in danger. A gas leak, unstable structures, people trapped inside. Logan turned to her. You see that? He asked. There are lives depending on split-second decisions. You're going to coordinate the rescue. I'll watch. You do it wrong, people could get hurt. You do it right, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see why I brought you here. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. This was real. Not a simulation. Not a video. Real people. Real danger. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to inhale slowly, to focus. She scanned the screens, taking in building layouts, crowd movements, emergency routes. She took charge, giving instructions over radios, coordinating with first responders, guiding them through unstable corridors. Left corridor blocked, she barked into a headset. Switch to the rear exit. Evacuate the children first. Every command was precise. Every decision mattered. And yet, as she worked, something extraordinary happened. The fear that had initially gripped her melted into clarity. She realized she could trust her instincts. She realized she was capable. Logan observed silently from behind, arms crossed, leaning against a desk. For the first time, his expression softened into something almost human, pride, relief, something she had never expected from him. Minutes felt like hours. Each new complication, a collapsing ceiling, a panicked mother, a stray dog, tested her resolve. She didn't flinch. She didn't freeze. She adapted, improvised, and led the rescue team to safety. Every life accounted for, every obstacle overcome. Finally, when the last person was safely evacuated, she slumped into a chair, exhaustion and adrenaline coiling inside her. She could hardly believe she had done it. Logan stepped closer, a small, approving smile tugging at his lips. You didn't just survive, he said softly. You thrived. You saved people. You trusted yourself when no one else could. That is rare, Maya. Very rare. She wiped her sweat-damp hair from her forehead, heart still racing. I didn't do it alone, she said. I had help. And you. I watched, he interrupted gently. I needed to see if you could handle it without interference. And you did. A long silence stretched between them, charged with unspoken emotion. Maya realized in that moment that this trial wasn't about money, power, or dominance. It was about courage, trust, and the raw humanity she had shown under pressure. Logan's eyes softened. You've proven yourself. Not just to me, but to yourself. That's what matters. Maya exhaled, relief flooding through her. She had faced fear, chaos, and the unexpected, and survived. And in doing so, she had changed something fundamental. Logan Thorne had begun to see the world differently because of her. For the first time, Maya realized the full weight of the journey. The shocking trial had tested her mind, her body, and her heart, and she had emerged stronger, fearless, and undeniably remarkable. The estate was quiet now, the adrenaline of the morning's chaos replaced by a tense, almost sacred stillness. Maya leaned against the wall, still catching her breath, her palms clammy, her mind racing from events of the day. Logan approached slowly, his usual mask of arrogance replaced by something unguarded, raw. You did it, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. Not just the task, but everything. You didn't falter. You didn't hesitate. You led. You saved lives. Maya's chest swelled with exhaustion and pride. She wanted to speak, to thank him, to protest that it wasn't just her, but she couldn't find the words. All the fear, all the doubt, all the struggles of her past had been funneled into this one moment of truth. Logan stepped closer, lowering his gaze to meet hers. I've built empires, manipulated markets, controlled outcomes, and yet today, I learned something invaluable. That strength doesn't come from wealth or fear. It comes from heart courage and the will to stand when everyone expects you to bend. You've reminded me of that. Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. I didn't do it to remind you of anything. I just did what I had to do. And that's exactly why it mattered, he said, finally allowing a faint smile to break through. Because you didn't do it for recognition. You did it because it was right. And that is extraordinary. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, two very different worlds colliding, yet finding understanding in most unlikely of ways. Maya realized that Logan, for all his wealth and power, had been searching for something money couldn't buy. And in her honesty, courage, and integrity, he had found it. Then, unexpectedly, Logan extended his hand. Maya Carter, I want to offer you an opportunity. Not a job, not a favor, but a partnership. Someone I can trust, someone who doesn't just follow but leads with heart. Will you take it? Maya hesitated, her mind racing through everything she had endured, everything she had overcome. And then, with a quiet certainty, she took his hand. Yes, she said, her voice firm, yet full of awe. Logan's smile widened, genuine this time, almost boyish. Good, because the world, well, it's about to change. And I can't think of anyone better to face it with. In that moment, the tension, the fear, and the trials of the past days melted away. Two unlikely allies from worlds apart had found trust, respect, and perhaps even something more. And as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting golden light across the estate, Maya realized sometimes the most powerful people aren't the ones with money. They're the ones who learn, through courage and humanity, how to truly see another person, and the ones brave enough to rise to the challenge.